Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
MMORPGs are such big time sinks, but I like them. It's almost like the open world genre has been eclipsed by how many MMOs there are out there to play. Today, we're returning to a game I played and then I quit after the trial, then came back to it like a decade later. That's right, we are reviewing The Old Republic. My name is Atratzu, and let's get this review going. It's gonna be a long one. Star Wars The Old Republic is an MMORPG developed by BioWare and later handed off to Broadsword Online Games. You'll create a character for the Old Galactic Republic or Sith Empire. Level up, collect gear, vanity pets, and mounts. Complete quests, get achievements, collect decorations and buy houses. Level up more, and run around on numerous planets in the Star Wars universe. The biggest standout feature in The Old Republic are the class-related quests and the incredible amount of voiced dialogue in the game. I played for around 350 hours as a free-to-play account before deciding to chip in $15 for a subscription for a month and to unlock more character slots and see the rest of the content. After my account relapsed into preferred status, oh by the way, the status of your account can be in free-to-play, meaning you never bought anything and have the most restrictions, subscribed, which has the least restrictions, and preferred status, which has more perks than a true free-to-play account, but you're back to having some free-to-play restrictions. We'll talk more about that later. Anyway, the subscription ran out and I kept playing. I finished playing as all the different classes and chipped away at achievements casually. I may resubscribe occasionally for future content, but one subscription was enough for me for now. If I do resubscribe again, I'll have saved up lots of credits and know exactly what premium stuff I want before my subscription ends again. Stuff like housing upgrades requiring over 1 million credits, or buying stuff in general costing over 1 million credits. My MMORPG resume is as follows. I started with RuneScape, then played World of Warcraft religiously for about 4 years. Dabbled in Perfect World for a few hours between WoW expansions. I tried out The Old Republic when it first came out, but I was already paying for World of Warcraft, so another subscription game wasn't going to work. Money was tight enough as it was. Then I played Guild Wars 2 religiously for about another 4 years. Best part of Guild Wars 2 was no subscription model. Went back in time to struggle with getting some stuff in the original Guild Wars 1 game. Then I played some Terra and Blade and Soul for a bit. Played some Black Desert Online, and since then, I've been pretty clean since 2017. I've played a little bit here and there, but nothing of the same magnitude as World of Warcraft or Guild Wars 2. I'd just go back to play on freebie weeks on WoW, or play as a free-to-play character capped at level 20 to scratch that itch. And then there was old school RuneScape, but that's different because I could play that on my phone. Speaking of old school RuneScape, I have a good video on that one too. You should check it out after you're done here. All that to say, when I tell you Star Wars The Old Republic is a pretty good MMORPG and has one of the most generous free-to-play models I've experienced, I think I've played a few of those and I know what I'm talking about. At the time of this video, I am past 680 total hours. However, there are a few caveats, so hear me out in this review, and of course, remember that as a Star Wars nerd, I'm more likely to have a positive opinion on anything Star Wars related. There are a few absolutely beautiful cinematics that have been released for the game, and in them there's actually some storytelling going on. I didn't notice them right away because when you make your first character, depending on your class, you're sometimes very isolated from Darth Malgus or Satele Shan. I played as a bounty hunter my first time through. I didn't really do any of the flashpoints, aka dungeons for my fellow WoW players, and my first time encountering Malgus was on Ilum. Ilum is the first planet after you finish your class stories. Translation: I didn't see Malgus for the first quarter of the game. The events of The Old Republic take place long after the Knights of the Old Republic RPG games. It's worth playing those old classic titles for an understanding more about pivotal characters like Revan, Bastila Shan, Master Vandar, the Exile from KOTOR 2, and the best droid ever, HK-47. Anyway, in the early cinematics, Malgus doesn't have his iconic mask, so I didn't even realize who he was until I'd played the game for a few hundred hours. Just like I didn't realize Satele had the last name Shan until I played as a Jedi Counselor. Got to see several familiar faces from KOTOR 1 on that class questline. But that's what I've really loved about my experience playing Star Wars The Old Republic's story. As I've played new classes, I've learned new details. As I've spent time in the world, I've learned new things which make the game feel that much bigger and have that much more depth. It's also come to my attention there's novels for the games. Considering I've loved Warcraft books, I'll definitely need to check out the Old Republic novels and comics someday. In general sweeping terms, you're playing as a character for the Empire or Republic who is part of a 3-act structure. Usually the first act is about some kind of growth or a hunt or something. Then the second act is an in-between character development series for you and your crew. And lastly, Act 3 ends on Corellia. Probably the worst planet to navigate in the game. To think the YT-1300, YT-2000, and YT-24,000 light freighters were made here. No wonder everyone's trying to leave this darn planet. It's a cartography death trap. Anyway, Act 3 ends on Corellia to neatly tie up the whole story with a bow. After you've become the hero of the Republic, or Empire, ultimate bounty hunter, or agent, Jedi Master, Sith Lord, whatever your final form might be at the end of Act 3, you can continue your journey with the expansions which came out. Even as a free-to-play account, you can access a few of the expansions. Rise of the Hutt Cartel, Galactic Starfighter, Galactic Strongholds, and lastly, Shadow of Revan. With the expansions, there will be some callbacks to your past deeds. For example, as a bounty hunter on the planet Rishi, the Shadow of Revan expansion, there was reference to my status as Grand Champion of the Great Hunt. And all the way forward to the Legacy of the Sith expansion, my status as a Mandalorian is acknowledged, and kinship with Torian being particularly special. It's worth noting there's a lot of story stuff in the Old Republic. Your character has a story, your companions have their own stories, the planet has a story quest line, the conflict around you has a story. I skipped flashpoints because I was dungeoned out from way back in the day on World of Warcraft, but in the Old Republic there's a story mode where you can beat flashpoints, aka dungeons, by yourself relatively easily. And not anger the random people in your group from the activity finder who just want to do the flashpoint quickly. On behalf of us all, please press the spacebar to skip when grouped. And with that note, might I strongly suggest taking the time to play the flashpoints on story mode. Before you end up done with Corellia, go to the planet Ilum and say, "Oh hi Darth Malgus, what have you been up to the whole game?" The story of the conflict between the Empire and Republic from planet to planet as a whole is interesting. It starts out with a tenuous peace and political encroachments from both sides until at last it gets blown into a full-scale war between the two factions at Corellia. And after you've finished more class stories, you're cued in on more behind-the-scenes details. For example, after finishing the Imperial Agent class story, the significance of the dismantling of Imperial intelligence hits completely differently because one of your characters lived through it. Trust me, if you can get into Star Wars The Old Republic for only one thing, play it for the classes. Pay a one-time subscription to unlock more character slots, or else you'll be capped at 4 characters, and play through the game for the class stories. I'm basically playing The Old Republic as a single-player game in an MMORPG world, but I cannot recommend it highly enough. Bonus points that you can quest with friends if you choose to do so, but more on that in a little bit. For $15, I'm more than happy with that price tag from what I experienced. It has been by far one of the better free-to-play experiences I've had with an MMORPG. And again, we'll cover that stuff in greater detail later in the video too.
Your empire needs you. Enlist today.
I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the stellar voice acting cast, and just how much work was put into it. We don't have time in this review to list off the whole collection of voice actors and their resume of work. Actually, feel free to comment your personal favorites because I'd love to hear about it. To list a few of my favorites, remember I primarily played Bounty Hunter. First class, played all the way through all the content before finishing all the other class stories, but I played a male character and had the male voice actor. I had no idea that the female bounty hunter is voiced by Vicky from Fairly Odd Parents or Azula from Avatar. That resume is extremely long. You know the voice. And now I know I need to play a female bounty hunter to play through the whole game again. And you know it's gonna be the evilest bounty hunter ever. And my favorite companion was Torian Kadira, a Mandalorian who just so happened to be voiced by Johnny Young Bosch. Once I realized why his voice was so familiar, I had to clip it and slap it on the Atratzu, etc. channel with the title, Ichigo, is that you? It's even more funny that while playing the Old Republic, we had been binge watching actually, Bleach and Bleach 1000-Year Blood War. Catherine Tabor is the voice actor for the Twi'lek vet, and is the same voice actor for Mission Veo from KOTOR. Catherine has actually voiced a lot of other stuff too, including Padme Amidala from the Clone Wars animated series. Do you now see how this list could just go on and on? They brought the A team for voice acting, and it shows. And there's a reason for that. On the one hand, it's about as close as you could get to turning the original KOTOR into an MMORPG. But more than that, the storytelling and sheer quantity of voice acting work put into the game is staggering, especially compared to other MMOs. Think about the voice acting in World of Warcraft, where everyone will hear the same voice lines.
Naxxana was merely a setback. With the power of the orb, Valanar will have his vengeance.
Good news, everyone! The slime is flowing again!
I haven't rated Ice Crown in forever, but you get the idea. You get the same voice lines. Everyone gets them. The WoW devs wouldn't want to spend time paying voice actors to do work recording lines which might never be heard, would they? Same thing in Guild Wars 2. You walk through an area and everyone's like,
Commander, we could really use your help over here.
You don't have the same level of complexity for voice acting because you don't always have choice in an MMO. I can't really think of any other MMORPGs which actually let you make dialogue decisions of any fashion. Can you? So naturally, there had to be a lot of work for different choices, and they could cut some corners by having the overall arching story to go in the same direction, but there was normally at least a unique voice line recorded by your protagonist and a unique response from the character you're interacting with when you made a dialogue choice. Then remember that there was a different voice actor for each class and each gender of that class. Oftentimes there were 3 choices for dialogue per decision, so you can imagine just how sprawling the voice acting lines could get. I don't think I could say the voice work was anything less than good. Some interactions were super dark and funny.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You got all the soldiers. We ain't fighters, just miners. Contracted miners at that.
Where is General Frelka?
He's the overseer, but he ain't exactly hands-on. Hasn't been by in weeks. You gonna kill him?
Yes. You have a problem with that?
Not really. Every job ends at some point. The Republic don't pay me enough to get in your way. Believe me. If I hit the silent alarm, Frelk'll come with his personal guard. If that's really what you want, I can bring him here.
This unnecessary chit-chat is angering me.
No, don't want that. Here, I'll trigger the alarm. There, it's done. The General's been summoned. Now, please, just let us live.
You've used up your usefulness.
No!
Other parts were heartwarming. There were some tear-jerking moments too. Between the different classes, different light side, dark side, or neutral choices, you had a whole array of emotional responses, and I think it was done really well. I've been impressed by the voice acting, and it's worthy of note because it's one of the features which sets Star Wars: The Old Republic apart from any other MMORPG I've ever played. I have a test of sorts for Star Wars games. On planets which have been well documented in the films, shows, and video games, I like to think to myself, does this feel like I'm on that planet in this video game? So if I'm playing a level, or in this case, exploring stuff on Nar Shaddaa, is it brightly colored, bustling with activity, but also does it kind of feel like someone's gonna try to sell me death sticks around the corner or jump me to steal my wallet? If so, then the level or area was well designed. And I don't think any of the planets had any crazy tonal differences. Even when we went to Yavin 4, which wasn't somewhere I was expecting to visit in the Old Republic era, but you know what? It was kind of neat. Two of the biggest planets are Tatooine and Hoth. As you'd expect, they're vast and empty in certain areas. Sometimes they weren't as empty as they should be, but this is still a video game, and it's not fun to make people travel miles of nothingness. But you get the idea. Hoth, icy. Tatooine, sandy, dry, coarse, and gets everywhere. Being a Mandalorian fan, I've got a fangirl over some of the very niche details in the Old Republic which did not pass me by. First fangirl moment was when they played the Star Wars Republic Commando theme, Vode On. Second fangirl moment, whenever they speak Mandalorian. I got particularly excited when I heard one Mando say Kandosi. I first learned about the Mando-Ah language while reading Karen Traviss Republic Commando books long before Grogu and Din Djarin hit Disney+. Sorry for being a bit of a hipster, but I am happy how much easier it is to buy Mythosaur emblem stuff online now. 10 out of 10. Anyway, my point is I really liked the Mando coverage in Old Republic. Every time something Mando related happened, I was very happy. Considering most characters in various Star Wars video games have force powers, I was most immersed in the world when I could make the special dialogue options like, "I can't use the Force," whenever Force-related things were going on. Smugglers, commandos, Imperial agents, and bounty hunters don't have the Force, so they all would have the special non-Force user dialogue options. I don't know. I really enjoyed not being a Force-slinging character the most because typically Force powers make heroes seem unrelatable and overpowered, which is great for a power fantasy character like in The Force Unleashed or like how I played my Sith Warrior. But compared to my bounty hunter who's just pushed into the situation to make a living and just really darn good at his job, so good at his job he was adopted by the Mandalorian clans. It just makes a better story in my headcanon. Here we go. Moving on to gameplay for an MMORPG. What all can there be to say about it, which hasn't been said about any other MMORPG? You know how most MMORPGs control, right? Movement with WASD on the keyboard, look around with the mouse, abilities and skills bound 1 through 9 on the keyboard, or click them on the action bar with your mouse. Get experience for killing stuff and completing quests, level up to get stronger new abilities. As you reach higher levels, equip gear to give you beneficial stats to increase your damage and health pool. Most people are familiar with MMO concepts. If you're not, feel free to let me know and I'll write it out or send you a link to a beginner's video or something. Star Wars: The Old Republic has all the typical expected MMORPG type things, with a Star Wars coat of paint over the top. Level up via questing, dungeons, or grinding out experience in some other way. At max level, after you finish the content, you work at getting the best gear with the best stats. Once I reached that point, I marked the Old Republic as complete in my book. I was in a raiding guild a lifetime ago on World of Warcraft. I won't go back to that life in any game. And once I reach that point in any MMO, it's time for me to bow out. I'm not going to log on and play a video game like it's my job. Unless you want to pay me how much I earn for working a job. I'll do it then. DM me your best offers. However, the journey to get to that point was enjoyable, and I'm satisfied with my experience playing the Old Republic. You have 8 classes in total, but they mirror each other. So, for the Republic, you have Jedi Knight, which plays the same as the Sith Warrior on the Empire side. The remaining classes are Jedi Counselor, Sith Inquisitor, Republic Trooper, Imperial Agent, Smuggler, and Bounty Hunter. Each class also has its own starship and group of companions who join you for the adventure. At character creation, you choose your faction, be it Republic or Empire, Then choose and customize your species ranging from human, cyborg, and Zabarak. And then they get you as a free-to-play account. There are 12 playable species in total, but you can't play as Twi'lek, Mariluka, Chiss, Sith Pureblood, etc. unless you subscribe. After character creation, the fun begins. I suggest you sit back and enjoy the ride. Don't worry when the game announces, "Experience reduced. Subscribe for more perks." I think you should play a character through all the free content and then decide at that point if you want to subscribe to increase the level cap and get the rest of the expansions. Again, after playing my bounty hunter to level 60 and finishing the available expansions, completing the Sith Warrior, Imperial Agent, and Jedi Counselor personal stories, plus leveling all of them up to level cap, I played roughly 350 hours of the game. You could quit there, but I enjoyed the game enough to cough up the subscription for a month to unlock more character slots and the expansions. Again, I suggest relaxing and just questing and playing the game at your own pace. That said, I've played a few different ways. The best experience was definitely my first character where everything was new. But bear in mind that each character will go through the same set of planets. You'll start on a world, go to your faction hub world, which is Coruscant or Drome and Kas. Then everybody jumps through the same hoops of Nar Shaddaa, Tatooine, Alderaan, etc. If you're trying to make progress under the level curve by skipping bonus objectives and avoiding extra places to get experience, you'll eventually be stopped at the planet Quesh, because you cannot continue to the planet's surface unless you get inoculated against the poison on that trash world. If stuck on Quesh, you'll need to go do heroic daily quests or backtrack to complete planet quests to get enough experience to pick up the Quesh planet quest, which lets you on the surface. I tried to finish my character's personal stories under the curve as much as possible, because I'm impatient, even though many people consider me to be a patient person. Trust me, I want to finish up the grinding as much as possible. And that's how I reached another pausing point in the game. Once I was 10 levels under the stuff I was fighting, I could no longer hit the enemies because my accuracy stat wasn't high enough. As a low-level character, I'd just see miss, 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 miss. I reached that point on Corellia too. It killed me inside to need to backtrack and farm up enough levels to finish that character's class story. So I would advise you do extra stuff occasionally to stay on top of the level curve. If you noticed you're a little bit higher than the level, skip stuff. If you noticed you're lower level, take your time, pick up some extra quests, or do some dynamic world events. Of course, none of this would be a factor if you just subscribed and used experience boosters. I didn't do either, on principle. That being said, it was nice to have the subscriber experience for a month, but my priorities were different. Having leveled up 4 level 60s and doing lots of extra stuff on my main, also having lots of credits saved up from doing heroic daily quests too, I first bought all the player housing locations I could, I bought the fastest speeder skill available, then played the expansions. But after the month's subscription finished, I went back to being a free-to-play account, but under the new label Preferred Player. After becoming a Preferred Player, I could relax and take my time leveling up each class, and enjoyed the game at a slower pace, but also at a cheaper, preferred pace. When I'm subscribed, I feel like I need to play the game to make it worth my money. Without the experience boost, you will not level up fast, but it's not necessary unless you're in a hurry for some reason. So you just gotta weigh your choices for yourself. Which do you value more? Saving money, or leveling up faster and having lots of ease of life bonuses? One of the only cartel coin purchases I've ever made has been to get the Boost Jetpack, which lets you move at nearly mount speed in unmountable areas. But again, by the time you get to level cap in the game, you'll know what stuff you need and want. And of course, if new content comes out or I decide I want to equip higher quality gear, join raids, or need more than 1 million credits to make a purchase, I can always resubscribe for a month. I'm going to be using the terms questing and missions interchangeably here, so bear with me as I switch between them. In the Old Republic, they're called missions, but I've been calling them quests for so long, I can't stop. Sorry, not sorry. Anyway, I played the Old Republic mostly like a single-player game. Occasionally, I would encounter group quests and heroic 2+ daily quests. If I couldn't beat the group quest by myself, I dropped it and moved on with my life. Honestly, this is kind of how I've always played MMORPGs. One part because coordinating with people's schedules is difficult, one part I quest pretty fast, and anyone who's played with me knows I bounce around from area to area really quickly. And lastly, Star Wars The Old Republic group questing is sometimes obnoxious and painful. Especially when questing as a group early on. Remember how I said your character has a story, the planet has a story, and the conflict has a story? Let me expound on that concept. There's a lot of different mission types. Again, when I say mission, think quest from other MMOs. Your character has a class story. And then after the class story, everyone becomes far more streamlined through the rest of the content. But the first 3-act structure is done with your class missions. In addition to class missions, you have planet missions. Both of these used to have purple mission icons, but a recent update changed it so only personal quests have purple icons. And you want to do the purple missions. If nothing else, you can skip any other mission type. The purple missions are your class-related missions, and if you're getting overleveled, skip the planet missions, and just do your class missions. And that's the bare minimum. I went back to completing other missions after reaching level cap, and I think that was a smart thing to do, because sometimes the quest will scale up to your current level, and thus your credit rewards will scale up too. Speaking of which, scaling down is a thing. If you go back to Droman Khas or Nal Hutta as a level 80, you're scaled down, but your gear still gives you really good stats and you're still stronger, just not one-hit wonder strong. Mostly. So you have class missions, planet missions, side missions, exploration missions, daily missions, heroic daily missions, weekly missions, PvP missions, flashpoint aka dungeon missions, space battle missions, special event related missions, sometimes loosely related to real life holidays like Life Day for Christmas and Spring Abundance Festival for Easter, and other special events of their own like Rat Ghoul Outbreaks or Swoop Racing. And I'm probably missing more mission types. Trust me, you're not about to run out of stuff to do for many, many hours, even if you never subscribe. I was doing the Spring Abundance Festival weekly and daily quests, level capped at 60, which sometimes sent me to level 80 planets. It's worth noting I'd get better credit rewards for completing missions had I been a higher level, though. So with all this great stuff to do, why do I think group questing is difficult? Say you and I are going to play Star Wars The Old Republic together. I make a bounty hunter, you make a Sith warrior. Obviously we need to be on the same faction, so we're both playing as Empire. But we're starting out on different planets. Bounty hunters start out on Nal Hutta, Sith start out on Korriban. Nothing too outrageous, after all. If you play as an undead and I play as an orc on World of Warcraft, we start out in different places there too. The problem is, we've got to finish our personal missions first. We can't both agree to start questing in a level 20 area and start grabbing chain quests. I guess we could skip the personal missions and just go to the same planet and do planet and extra missions together, but after you finish a planetary mission, it doesn't send you to the next planet. The best way to know which planet you can go to is to follow your personal quest. Are you starting to get a bit of an idea of how this is problematic? So eventually our personal missions will send us to the same planet, so surely then we can do our personal missions until we rendezvous on Droman Khas. Yes, true. And it probably takes a few hours of questing to get there. But once we get to Droman Khas, even then personal missions will send us to different locations on Droman Khas. And while I'm grouped up, I have a hard time keeping track of whose quest is whose. So it becomes a test of patience of walking over, finish one quest, walk over, finish someone else's quest. It's just not streamlined in a way which makes sense to be grouped up and do together. The solution the developers made was to let party members to holo-call into shared quest dialogue and turn-ins. But that doesn't count for class missions because they're individual. I leveled a Sith warrior with my wife who played a Sith Inquisitor, and the experience all the way to Corellia was just a lot of running around. Running around and backtracking all the time isn't how I want to spend my time. But then we find ourselves in familiar territory with bigger conversations within game theory with flying mounts over Kalimdor in the Eastern Kingdoms, where you start to appreciate areas less because of prioritizing efficiency and quickly traveling from point A to point B. The faster you complete quests, the less they matter. The less you experience an adventure, the more you get into a grind set mindset. But this situation is a bit different because I backtrack to help you finish your quest and I get nothing out of it. No rewards, no input on dialogue choices. You'll get maybe a tiny bit of experience, but experience for beating NPCs is cheap and can be earned in greater amounts and easier by doing quests which are shared, or heroic daily quests. So I would say the early game experience as a group isn't great if you're playing different classes. I even tried playing the same class as my wife on other characters, but then you can't join their personal story at all, so I couldn't figure out any shortcuts to make the early game co-op more enjoyable. So to me it sounds a lot like I've just been complaining. And it's true, I didn't really care for the group questing experience, but after you finish your personal story, it's much easier to group up, and there is definitely content which is more readily available for groups of people, like flashpoints, aka dungeons, or heroic daily quests. Once you finish your personal story on Corellia, you'll only have a few planets where you're easily grouped up before you're finished with the free-to-play content. At that point, if you've enjoyed the game, I'd consider subscribing for a month to get more. Let's take a little bit of time and talk about what you can and can't do as a free-to-play account. There are 3 states your account will be in after you create it. You start out playing free-to-play, with the most restrictions and limitations. Then, if you pay for a subscription, you'll get the most stuff, namely more character slots, raised max level, personal bank, credit cap removed, and a whole lot more. After your subscription ends, if your subscription ends, you'll have a special status called Preferred. I think, in theory, you could skip the subscription and get preferred status by buying something with the premium currency, which are called cartel coins, but I'm at a point in my life where I'm more than willing to spend a little bit of money on a game I really enjoy. Preferred status is interesting because you have more perks than free-to-play, but not everything. You don't have as many character slots, but you do have more than a free-to-play account. You still have access to all the expansion content you had as a subscriber, but you have the credit cap again, so you need to offload your credits into your bank. And also something called artifact armor restrictions. Generally speaking, you can't equip stuff of purple quality gear. Don't worry about that, that's endgame stuff. From level 1 to 79, just equip gear with the biggest green number. There's more to the list, but I'm not going to read off the whole list of changes between the different statuses. If you're curious, I'll add a link in the video description so you can read up more about it. Also, the perks have changed over the years, so best consult the latest table anyone has made. Simply put, free-to-play is pretty fun. But the thing I was most bugged about was being capped at having only 4 character slots, capped at level 60, capped at 1 million credits, which can be held at a time. I did deposit the credits into my shared bank, so I saved up before I ever subscribed, by the way. When I first subscribed, I just played the game. It was fun. I tried to get as much progress as possible, so I could maybe get some higher quality artifact gear, but ran out of time before I could make any huge progress. That's the biggest impact from going back to preferred status. Most of those restrictions are back, but I can still save credits and level up alt characters as a preferred account. So that's fine by me. As a preferred account, I went back to the old way of playing. The goal was to not be too spoiled from the previous month. But remember, my goal here was to play through each class's story and then I'll resubscribe or leave the game, whichever I feel like doing going forward from that goal. I think if you already know your intent and goals before going into the game, you'll be better off. If you're looking for a Star Wars MMORPG, the Old Republic is pretty good. If you're looking for a brand spanking new MMORPG with the nicest graphics and the most compelling gameplay, well, the Old Republic might not be your first choice then. Like I said at the start of the video, I like Star Wars stuff. I also liked my time playing as a bounty hunter. But I came back after the first launch of the Old Republic, and the game is so much better now than it was before. You can still see the remnant bones of the old system while you play. I think you had to unlock fast travel points by interacting with them, but now you just unlock them by walking into town. You used to need to learn new abilities and skills from class trainers. Now you get them automatically. The only skill you learn now is how to ride. So in a funny way, you can learn how to ride by talking to any trainer out there. And of course, the experience gained was crazy slow. You needed to do nearly every quest on a planet to level up enough to go someplace else. It's no coincidence I quit playing after I got to Tatooine. In 2013, the Rise of the Hutt cartel was released. In short, those pesky Hutts have discovered a substance called Isotope 5 located on the planet Makeb. So you will work to recover Isotope 5 for either the Empire, or work to stop the Hutts' conquest as the Republic. Each faction has their own method of approach, and once again it behooves you to make at least one character on both factions so you can see the story from both sides. And that applies to all the story stuff in the Old Republic. However, at the expansions, the class differences will be more peripheral and not really noteworthy at all for the Rise of the Hutt Cartel expansion. In 2014, we got Galactic Starfighter, Galactic Strongholds, and Shadow of Revan. Galactic Starfighter is its own game mode where you fly around in a starfighter capturing objectives against other players. It's kind of like playing Star Wars Squadrons PvP, kinda. It's got its own collectible gear, crew, and a whole lot of stuff. And that's about all we're going to talk about in this video. Again, there's just lots of stuff in this game. Galactic Strongholds provided player housing. Pick your favorite planet, save up your credits, and buy yourself a house. In all likelihood, your first player house will be on Coruscant if you play Republic, or Dromund Kaas if you play Empire. But you can get a lot of cool places. And of course, you are limited by the credit caps as a free-to-play or preferred account. You also unlock decorations for your space, and who doesn't love decorating? And we have Shadow of Revan. You deal with Revan in one of the flashpoints, so make sure you don't skip them. I mean, you can skip it, it's fine, but you shouldn't. The more characters your character meets, the better, because sometimes you get special dialogue with them. For Shadow of Revan, you're hanging out on the planet Rishi and the fourth moon of Yavin. There's a bit of an interlude between Shadow of Revan and Rise of the Hutt Cartel where you'll get to know the next cast of characters for the upcoming DLC. Remember my rule of thumb. Do the purple missions, aka quests, and go get those flashpoint dungeons on story mode before diving into this DLC. That is, if you care about the story, which you should. During Shadow of Revan, the lines between Republic and Empire get blurred as you lead an operation to work together to deal with the latest threat called the Order of Revan. In 2015, Knights of the Fallen Empire was released. Note, this is where free-to-play privileges end at the time of this review. There was an in-between quest line of hunting down the Spirit of the Emperor leading up to this expansion. Some time has passed since then, and it turns out you found him. He's reincarnated or something and turned into a family man. Aww. It's one of the critical storytelling points here. Before you start this expansion, make sure you've done your class quests, Act 1, 2, and 3. Do all quests associated with your companions, Ilum, Makeb, aka Rise of the Hutt Cartel, Orikron, Shadow of Revan, and Ziost-related purple quests. Only after that should you take the next step, because your crew is about to be shook up. It was really emotional experiencing finding all the different crew members one by one after starting Knights of the Fallen Empire. I still haven't seen my angry tumor companion since starting this expansion, but I didn't like him anyway. That guy was a creep. Never wanted a Black Sun Bruiser for a crew member, but he invited himself on board. Knights of the Fallen Empire ends on a cliffhanger. Thankfully, it doesn't matter because you launch right into the next expansion immediately after. I would have been mad had I been playing this when it came out and needing to wait a year for the next expansion.
So therefore, in the year 2016, Knights of the Eternal Throne was released,
where the story continues, this time focusing on the daughter of the family, Valen, and further complicates your character known as the Outlander being in a large leadership position. It'll be slightly different because, depending on your choices, as a bounty hunter, I kept trying to make decisions to give away power and downscale operations. After all, in my headcanon, Atratzu just wanted to be a bounty hunter and make enough credits to live an easy life somewhere nice. But they just keep forcing him to be a leader of larger and larger groups of people. Then, in 2019, we got the expansion Onslaught. I didn't do much for this expansion because the big content stuff was basically, oh look, new planet, oh look, new raid, don't you want to go in there and raid? And I was like, no. In my summary, something, big robots or titan gods or something, throw in with helping the Empire or Republic, you save the day after finishing the raid, which I never did. And lastly, in 2022, Legacy of the Sith was released. A new threat is discovered. Ain't that always the way? All of these expansions have you jumping around from planet to planet, but this one seemed larger than normal and had lots of Mandalorian-related stuff. And, unfortunately, left me on a frustrating cliffhanger where Mandalore the Avenger goes running off with... well, I don't want to spoil anything after all. As I said earlier in this video, I played Star Wars The Old Republic when it was first released. I even tracked the beta. We all thought it was going to be the WoW killer, and I was excited to play a Star Wars MMORPG, so I was okay if it actually followed through on those rumors. However, there were a few key expectations which the game didn't meet, which just made me lose interest in the game. The biggest one is that I would need to contrast my playstyle on World of Warcraft as a hunter and the Old Republic as a bounty hunter. As a hunter, my preferred method of combat was to run backwards and shoot my target, known as kiting. In the Old Republic, you don't kite. You find a spot to attack, and you stand there and shoot. What I wanted was to play as my hunter, but in Star Wars land as a bounty hunter. So the gameplay didn't hook me. More than that, I strongly disliked it because of my previous expectations. Coupled with all the pre-Ease of Life updates they've released for the game, it took forever to level up. You needed to do nearly every single quest to stay on top of the curve, or else you needed to subscribe, and I didn't want to subscribe to a game which didn't give me my fluid Hunter World of Warcraft game experience. So I've returned to the Old Republic with the mindset, this is just a Star Wars MMO. I'm gonna play this like it's a peripheral to KOTOR 1 and 2. Not playing this as a substitute for my World of Warcraft addictions, I'm playing it to play a Star Wars MMORPG. I'm not gonna play this like I played World of Warcraft for several reasons, but with my new approach in mind, I don't think I gave the game a fair chance to begin with. But I've given it a fair chance now, and thoroughly enjoyed my time, and would definitely recommend checking out the game for yourself. You'll have more than an adequate amount of time to decide if you want to stick around on the way to level 60. Star Wars The Old Republic has been an adventure. I haven't been hooked by an MMORPG like this for a long time. I got hooked primarily because of the subscription model, and coupled with it being a Star Wars game. Again, I would encourage anyone interested in the game to give it a try. The free-to-play model is very generous. If you play smart, you can make it so your first, and possibly only time subscribing, will get you tons of great upgrades and unlocked content. But it is an MMORPG, so expect to spend tons of time playing, expect to stick around, don't rush the adventure, sit back, let your choices guide your character down their path, be that light side paths, dark side paths, or somewhere in between. If you're interested in hearing me talk more, after all, you did just listen to me talk about the Old Republic for nearly an hour, you can check out any number of my reviews. If you want to help out the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want specific recommendations, I'm guessing you're a Star Wars fan. I've got a whole playlist of Star Wars games I've reviewed.
Please check them out. Maybe you'll find your next game to play, or maybe I've played one of your favorites from when we were kids.
Anyway, thanks again for taking the time to listen to my review. My name is Atratzu, and I'll see you in the next review. Comment your support for why Mandalorians are the best. Oya Manda, let's hunt. Atratzu signing off.